What's up, everybody? We're going to do an NV200 review. This is by OneLeaf. It's digital binoculars on kind of on steroids. It has, 4K 120p, 4K 30, 1080p recording, does photos, and there's a lot of tech wrapped into this because it's a day and night vision kind of scope, or I guess scanner. And having this for a couple months now, waited to do the review until I got up to the Black Hills. I had a photography trip set up. And if you don't know this, there's another channel that I put content out on. You can check it. If you're into prairie chickens and wildlife photography and that kind of stuff, check that out. But hiking in the hills for the last 2 weeks, week to 2 weeks, want to give you guys, a rough estimate of how good this device is, some of the pros and some of the cons. Before we get into the performance and the use case, let's go over the specs. Now, this is a pretty beefy device. You can get an option to get on a rangefinder on this. It has a 35mm lens along with a built-in IR light, and it's focusable. You're able to get it out there maybe broad or very focus oriented. Again, the options for this price-wise, it goes from anywhere from $340, I think $369 all the way up to $544, depending on if you want the rangefinder built in or the adaptable piece, along with the 128 gig SD drive, SD card, or the 100, I think it's the 64 gig. So let's go over real quick. There's 7 buttons on top. A lot of this is, you got your power on, you got your IR light, you got your recording, you got your picture taking, and all that kind of stuff. On the back, there is a 3-inch LCD screen, which you can look through. We'll talk about, the resolution there. Up front, as you can see, the rangefinder. This is the lens with a screw adapter, a kind of a sunshade. You can check it out. And this is the IR light. On the side, there is a bunch of ports. One is like a headphones port. One is a mini HDMI, which you can connect an external screen. You wouldn't think this would be useful, but stay with me on that. You have an SD card slot, and you have a USB-C port. On the other side, you actually have like 3 lithium batteries that goes in this thing. So the battery life out of the gate is outstanding. You definitely tell you, this was not plugged in for 3 months, got out to the Black Hills, and it was at 95% power. Used it through the trip, and I think the lowest point, it was maybe 50% power. So the battery life right out of the bat, guys, very, very good. The menu system in this is standard across the board for OneLeaf. If you've ever messed with their scopes or viewed any of that kind of stuff, their menu system is one of the best menu systems out there. It's just very intuitive. There's 21 different options. The nice thing about this versus the scope, there's literally 1 or 2 changes that you make, and that is whether you want to go day-night vision and what do you want to really record in. My suggestions: use 4K 30p. 4K 120p is a little bit much. It doesn't work well at night. And just to simplify things, use 4K 30p and you should be okay. If you're really into the slow motion, you could go 4K 120p, but you do suffer on the image quality a little bit. Obviously, it does photos, and it's okay for that as well. All right, now that we got the specs out of the way and the build, what was it like using this? First of all, putting this in a backpack for a few days, you definitely notice it. This isn't a small binocular setup. It's not a small, thermal setup. It's got some beef to it. Now, the build quality on this is exceptional. It's got weather sealing, much better than the traditional stuff you would call toys out there. The stuff for $249. The base model is right around $369, but to me, it is worth the extra price because some of the other stuff they have out there, it's not adaptable. The light's a little weak. The batteries aren't the greatest. You could just tell it's not weather sealed, all that kind of stuff. So you're getting a much more refined and beefy product that you can beat the crap out of for a long time with this device. Let's talk video quality. All right, it has a 20x digital zoom, which isn't the greatest. In fact, it's pretty poor. Once you get past, a digital zoom of 4 or 5, you have to remember you're actually cropping into the sensor, and that degrades your image quality. So 1 to 5 zoom is, you can get some fairly decent video, but as soon as you go past that, you start getting a little bit of jaggedies, you start getting a little bit of rough look. That's not necessarily the best case. So the videos and the photos that they show across the board for these devices is a little bit misleading. And it's one of those things that if you kind of look at professional gear, photography gear, you know that some of those images, more than likely, there was some other gear used to get those images outside of something like this or the competition. I don't know why they do that, but it's a little frustrating to say the least. In addition to the video being, you know, the 4K being acceptable, image stabilization is not really there. And that's the reason why, you know, looking at the digital or the actual tripod mount, if you want really good video, stable video, you're going to want to put this on a tripod. And that's pretty much for any camera that you don't necessarily have image stabilization with. It's one thing to look through this and see and spot your subject and do some video, but when you go back through and look at the video, it's going to be very jittery and kind of moving around. And so looking at some of the stuff you guys are seeing, it's been put through some image stabilization and it's still a little bit rough. Overall, the sensor during the day in the 4K 30 or any of the kind of video during the day, it's over amplified. And they've taken, you know, OneLeaf's taken a safe approach and not having people try to figure out the best exposures and everything else. The light amplification with this setup is pretty extreme, meaning you can use it day or night, kind of out of the box the way it sets up and you're fine, right? But the problem is during the day and bright days, you need the sunshade on and it kind of tries to do the best it can for the amount of amplification of light it's using. Where this really shines is at night. And this is where you look at some of the image quality at night and you're really surprised that it kind of hangs with the bigger cameras because they're amplifying things and they got a fairly fast lens on it that brings in a lot of good light to make use of that. And then when you power on the IR light, it just absolutely can be pretty shocking. So myself put this out there as, you know, driving the Black Hills, or at least my wife was driving, and I was just spotting around in dark areas and I could see different animals, different subjects. And if there was any kind of ambient light or any kind of light from farming gear or lights or any of that kind of stuff, this really amplifies it where you don't need that, you know, the IR light system. You pretty much can just go bare bones and get some pretty good video. Now, if you turn on, you know, the IR light, you can get out there hundreds and hundreds of yards and, you know, spot and identify things. The benefit of this, which we call kind of more of a scanner versus the thermal, is the fact that you get subject identification. You can tell whether, you know, it's a dog or if it's a coyote, versus if you're using pure thermal, you might just see a red dog-like feature and it could be a coyote or a dog. So this is, to me, if you're scanning, you're looking for subjects for identification, definitely worth it. One of the other things I didn't particularly care for was the focus system. This has a 3-inch screen you have to look at, but if you have like closeness vision, meaning it's kind of like staring at a screen this close when you put it up to your eyes, that it's a little blurry. And I didn't see any diopters. I didn't see really a way to fix this. Now, if you hold it away from you a little bit or just kind of relax it, the focus system, because there's a focus wheel back here, you can pretty much use that and you can tell. Now, there's a picture in the picture, but again, that was a little bit grainy and you kind of got to give it a little bit look. But for me, the focusing on this was a little bit tough, but once you get used to it, you can kind of get some fairly sharp video or photos. As I mentioned, the battery life is exceptional, and that's where, for me, it shines above a lot of the other products out there that, you know, has been used. They put in a small battery and that makes it light. This is definitely will last you, I don't know, 12 hours or better. What is the use cases for this device? For me, using it as in the day for spotting or like binoculars is not really a good option. There's a lot lighter options that you can put in your backpack or whatever. And even though it has a rangefinder on there, there's just probably easier ways to do this. Where this excels for myself is predator calling and night vision or doing something along the lines. So if you had a shooter and you wanted to do some pretty good high quality night video, you could put this on a tripod and an external monitor and just scan it back and forth. Obviously, you know, when you have a shooter, even with the digital scope, when they shoot, the rifle bounces and it can be very jarring. It can kind of screw up the video, the look of what's going on. You could have something out there a couple hundred yards and along the lines of with the IR light and just kind of scan back and forth. And as soon as you see something, you hit the record button and you tell your buddy or your partner that's going to shoot, you're live, go ahead and take the shot. To me, that's one of the best case scenarios for something like this. Another option would be keeping it in the truck. It's very durable. If you're looking just scouting from a vehicle, or if you're looking outside your house, or if you're looking outside around a farm or something, this is another great option. The portability aspect of this, unfortunately, is a no-go, along with the video quality during the day. There's a lot of better options out there, you know, cell phones and small little pocket zooms with in-body stabilization that will greatly outperform this. If you're in a pinch, you can use it, but it wouldn't be my first choice or second choice for that matter. But at night, I would definitely say it's probably one of the first choices you want to try and do. So I just want to put this out there as a perspective. This is the use case that would be used. And, you know, let me know your thoughts. If I you know, glossed over anything, that'd be great. Hit that like, subscribe, and probably in the next week or two, we're going to get out to the range and do some shooting. It's been itching. It's been a long time coming. Haven't given up on the channel, but, you know, I owe it to OneLeaf. They've been calling me on this, and I've kind of pushed it off as long as I could to get out to the mountains and actually do a proper test on this device. So again, write down any questions, that kind of stuff. See you next week.